So with this tutorial, what we're going to look at is frequency separation, a great way to work with dealing with models, dealing with kind of smoothing out skin and such. But what we don't want to do is we want to separate tone from texture. So this is the way we do it. The first thing is we need to make two copies of this background, one, two. I'm going to call this one blur. And I'm going to call this one detail. Turn the blur off, or turn the detail off, sorry. We are going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And all we want to do, right, so that's going to be too much. We just want to blur just enough of this so that the detail is not there, right? So we're going to bump this up to about 6. Now that number will change. That number will change depending on the photograph that you have. In this one, it's 6. It's just enough to blur some of the skin tone off. Okay. With the detail, we need to use a couple things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Image, Apply Image. We're going to take it off the layer that says Merge, and we're going to use the blur layer. We are going to change our blending mode to Subtract, and we're going to change these numbers to 2 and 128. And what you should get is something that looks like this. And so what this does is it's just allowing us to see all the detail that's in this. And then we need to change this to linear light. And what you should get when you're all said and done, I'm going to group these, is you should actually see no change in your image. If you've done this right, you have separated out your detail from your tone. The blur is more the tone. Right, so we're going to call this tone. I'm just doing this for you. And this is the texture. Right, so now we have tone and texture. So in order to get rid of the tone, in order to kind of deal with that, we are going to use the regular lasso tool. And we're going to use feather. Now I'm going to use it at 25 pixels because I know that's what it is. But if you wanted to test out and you wanted to really see what you wanted, I'm just going to make a selection here. If I do a quick match, which is Q, you can see the blurring that I'm getting here, the feathering, that's what you want, right? So as long as you get that, now it may not be 25 in your image, it may be 10, whatever you're using for this, right? So hit Q again to get out of that. So here's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to make a selection inside of here. So I already have that feathered, right? We can kind of see what that looks like. There it is. I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur. Now this blur will be more than your first one. So, and this all depends on the effect that you want. We're going to do about, I don't know, let's do 12. Let's do double what we had. So you can see the difference and just do OK. And now I'm just going to make my lassos around with the areas. And because I know I want to do the same one, I'm just going to do Gaussian blur. I'm just going to do the filter here, the shortcut, Command F will just kind of replicate the last filter that I did. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and make some rough selections here. And what I like about this one is using this technique is you're not necessarily changing her face at all. You're not changing the structures. You're just kind of evening out some of the lighting. And you may be looking at that saying, oh, what's necessarily, I don't see a big difference. But look at when you turn this on and off, and you'll see a difference. Okay, so very quickly, there we go. And so let's turn this on and off. And you'll see all I did was even out some of the tone. And you can say, oh, it looks too flat. You could tone this down. You could go back and re-edit. That's all up to you. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to edit the texture. So if I take this if I bring this to normal, you'll see that I'm just going to use the stamp tool. And what I'm looking to do is just get rid of any sort of blemishes and things like that. And you can see that because of this, it's very easy. Let's turn this back to linear light so you can see what's kind of going on. So you can see I'm not dealing with Make sure it's on just current layer. I'm not dealing with any of the tone that gets in the way. It's all dealing with texture. It allows me to make these edits really super fast. And that's what we're trying to do, is just kind of speed up this this idea and really get down to dealing with one versus the other. So I don't necessarily have to deal with the idea of skin tone getting in the way of me fixing blemishes. So in the end, here's what you have. Right? And you can decide, you know what, that tone, you know, maybe that was a little bit too harsh. And so you could go back and readjust how you're doing it. There you go. That is frequency separation.